Episode number 33, Bretta Gerecke.
All right, cut to edge of stage. Great. All right, color frost.
Check. 1, 2, 3. Check.
Stand by, please. House to half, house out, running cues 1 through 10, ground cues 1 through 10.
And welcome back to The Title Block, a podcast about Canadian theatre designers, their history, and their craft. And I'm your host, Michael Cruz. And this week, I bring you a conversation from my trip to the Stratford Festival in May of this year. Bretta Gerecke spent most of her early professional life in Edmonton, but after years of work for the likes of the Citadel and Cirque du Soleil, and illustrating archaeological finds, if you can believe it, she now lives and works in London, England. Bretta and I met in a very noisy boardroom backstage at St. Radford's, and I'm sure you'll enjoy our conversation. Now, make sure to check out the show notes. There you will find photo and video material to support the conversation, including a full-length video of the Cirque show that Bretta designed for the Milan Festival last year. And if you're able, please go to patreon.com to support the Title Block podcast. We continue to record special events like the Bellows tonight that I'm going to be recording and actually sending out live, so you guys may have seen that already. And I talk to senior designers, and if you chip in a couple bucks an episode, you ensure that I can continue to bring you the leaders in Canadian theatre design. If you have any comments about the show, please forward them to thetitleBlock@gmail.com or contact us through Facebook or Twitter, and I would love to hear from you. And now my conversation with designer Bretta Gerecke. Bretta Gerecke is the resident designer at Catalyst Theatre, where she's been designing and conceiving world premieres for the past 20 years. She's a set, lighting, costume designer, triple threat, who creates for theatre, musical, circus, and opera. We'll be talking about all of that today on the Title Block. Bretta, welcome.
Thank
to the Title
you.
Block.
Thank you,
Great
Michael.
to finally meet you and speak with you in person. Now, you were born in Winnipeg.
I was.
Tell me about what
I
it's
was
like.
not born in Winnipeg.
You weren't
That's
born in
such a
Winnipeg.
lie.
Where were you born?
I grew up in Winnipeg.
Okay, where were you born?
I was born in Vancouver.
Oh, okay, that's great. And then you moved to Winnipeg probably early.
Yes,
Your
I was
life.
5. I was
okay.
5 when we moved to Winnipeg. So I am a Winnipegger.
You are. Oh, that's great.
True Winnipegger.
And you lived. We're talking today in Stratford in the production office here. But you had a short stint in Kitchener just down the road, 3 to 5 years where I grew up, which is awesome.
I did.
But how did you make it to? What was your first post-secondary education training? What did you do first? Because it wasn't theater, was it?
No, it wasn't. I was planning on being an architect. My dream was architecture. So I started in interior design. My father was a city planner and a true believer that one should be creating buildings inside and outside, not as monuments to themselves, but as real places to live and work and breathe and enjoy and be productive. So my goal was I would get an interior design degree and then get an architecture degree so I could couple those two things and be responsible. This was the big plan when I was 18. And I took my undergrad in interior design, and we're actually all together, the undergrad architecture students and interior design students. It was a great influence and going back and forth. And that was a 4-year program, excellent program. And I was a bit uncertain. I took a year off. I was a little bit uncertain because my friends that were in architecture were finding it was quite a long process to get to a place where they were designing things that they were. It's a massive apprenticeship, right? And fair enough, you're designing buildings and so on. I craved something a bit more immediate, so I was uncertain. I took a year off and I went back to school and I took my master's in fine arts in theater design, which talk about immediate. That is definitely immediate. On darker days, people call it disposable. I don't believe it's disposable. I do believe it changes people and how they live and breathe in the world. But that was the end result.
That's great. How was the response? First of all, where did you go? Where did you get your MFA?
At University of Alberta.
And what was their response to having an interior design architecture focused student apply for a MFA in theater? What do they think you're doing?
I suppose I should have been wary because students who have already have some sort of theater design undergrad can bypass this first qualifying year, right? So the degree is either 3 years if you need a qualifying year or 2 years if you don't. I had to take 3 years, so clearly they didn't see my undergrad as pushing me to the top of the class. But it was also an excellent program. I was very lucky. Both my programs, they're fantastic because it's conservatory, right? So it's practical. You're hands-on and you're living it, and it was excellent. Yeah.
You're actually I think the third person I've interviewed for the podcast who has a connection to the University of Alberta. Alan Stitchbury, who went there back in the 70s. Pat Flood, who I just interviewed yesterday, she went to U of A for her undergrad as well. And I've worked with innumerable people who have come out of the MFA program, both in directing and design. It seems like a hub for design, at least in Canada, especially... or not especially, but especially for design, I should say. So that's terrific. Now, once you got into the program, were you certain this is what you were going to do, or was there a moment through that process or coming out of it that you thought, oh no, yeah, okay, this is what I should be doing?
No, I was a bit uncertain. I had, for better or for worse, a woman who was a year ahead of me dropped out, and I ended up getting all of her projects because they didn't have anybody else to give them to. Everybody else had sort of a full docket. And it was a qualifying year, so I wasn't really assigned. I was assigned paper projects. I wasn't assigned practical projects. So I ended up being thrown into the fire. And I think I was pretty terrible. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't understand lighting. I didn't understand the spirit of what I was bringing to the storytelling. I really didn't. You got to do it to get it. You can read about it and watch it, but you really do have to do it. So I think early on, it was a bit of a flail. But what happened was I discovered that it was sort of like this never-ending process of learning. You can't ever know. Every project it's not, you can do 10 Miss Julies or you can do 10 Julius Caesars. They're all going to be different because of the people involved in them. And that dynamic, that the way that the project morphs based on the artists that are involved was so exciting, and it's a massive adrenaline rush. Like for me, it's just I'm a little bit of a junkie. I love it. I love it.
No, you're not the first person to glom onto that as a great way to stay alive and be in theater, right? Yeah. Now, exiting the MFA program, your first. You told me earlier that Catalyst Theatre was the thing that made your career. Can you tell me about how was that right after you got out of the MFA program? What happened when you sort of started in the wild world of design? Sure.
I was very lucky. I went to university with Jonathan Christensen, who is the artistic director at Catalyst Theatre. He was in his MFA directing, and I did a couple of shows with him while I was there. We worked really well together, and when he graduated, he and Joey Tremblay took over the artistic directorship of Catalyst Theatre. And my big fear graduating was who on earth is going to hire me? Why would they hire me? What do I have to offer? What do I bring? And John and Joey were looking for a designer, and they created a company. So we had a company of actors, a designer, a technical director, a production manager, and I think there were 11 of us that first year, and I think we all made $500 a month, and that's what we lived on. And we were, it was an absolute immersion into the world of creating small theater, and that's where it started.
That's terrific. So first of all, this is in the early 90s, right?
This is 96.
96, okay, so the mid-90s. First of all, to have a resident company that's not rep theater, established rep theater, and have a resident designer, a production manager, and a technical director,
yes,
to me is just like the heavens open up and you hear angels singing. That's an incredible thing to do. I think that's
Well, it was
fantastic.
incredible, but it was mad. I mean, we took over an abandoned warehouse where artists were squatting. The rain poured through every possible bit of the ceiling it could. Heather, who was our producer at the time, our general manager at the time, had to keep moving her desk because it was getting rained on. We were all part of the renovation, which essentially meant we had to put in a toilet. We had to, do you know what I mean? Like the whole place was, and what we don't have is enough before photos because, my God, that place was amazing. It was so, there was nothing. There was absolutely nothing there. And that we just all had a common dream.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's a great way to start theater as well. I mean, probably the older listeners are going, "Oh my God, I can't imagine working under those conditions."
Anything
but honestly,
worse.
when you're a young artist, it seems like there's a certain romance about that, especially when it gets better.
Oh, there was, yeah. There was a truly romance about it. I was 25, and I think the oldest of us was probably mid-30s, and then the youngest were like 21, 22. So it was, it was a time that can't be replicated. It was incredible.
That's great. And tell me about the shows. So, what was your first show at Catalyst that you did?
I think we did 9 new world premieres the first year. I honestly think we did 9, and it was insane. The first one we did was an adaptation of Elektra, and we had rollers and paint, and in the middle of tech, we're painting the walls to prepare for an audience to arrive. Not the set, just the walls of the actual space. So it was that was our very first show, and it was extremely ambitious and massive, and we really hadn't figured out how yet we were going to make this thing happen. But it was incredible. There was a great vibration in the room, and I remember it extremely fondly, as we do with things in the past. But yes. I do remember it extremely fondly.
Yeah, that's great. I one of the things. It must have been great to do the same work in the same space over and over again on different iterations or different shows, so you could actually try to solve the problem differently, or to solve that problem that you only figured out by the third show. Like, that must have been a great training ground to do all that work in a short period of time in one space, so you could figure your stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we also, we didn't have any equipment. We begged, borrowed, and stole. I did steal a couple of lights from U of A. Sorry, I returned them. But there was a lot of that going around because we didn't have a lot to begin with. But we were nothing if not brave. Every corner of that space was used for something new the next time we did a project. So, like, honestly, I think of the lot of us, I think maybe 4 of us survived into the next year because it was very intense. 4 or 5 intense. The learning curve was so steep, but magical. And I think that, well, I know that without that, and it's the creative dialogue, right? The connections you form with creative partners. If you don't form them young, I think it's a very, very challenging business because you need that that spirit, that inspiration, that connection that happens when the what if is so exciting, and even if it isn't groundbreaking, you feel like it is in the moment, right? And if people miss out on that, I certainly have lots of friends who have left the business. I think it's often because they're sort of frustrated with the lack of passion and excitement in those connections that haven't formed as they had hoped.
And what happened? So you've been there since you're still with Catalyst Theatre now.
I am.
How has the work changed over that period of time? Like, it's matured as everyone else has matured, I guess, right?
Sure, it's changed dramatically. We have we now almost exclusively do musicals. Oh, right. Jonathan is a brilliant composer, and so he writes and and music first. In fact, I think music comes to him before any text. And there's a lot of shared dialogue. It's highly collaborative. I think it still has that vibrancy, but we've all, things have to become a bit more manageable. you have to find a way to sustain your the passion and the power for the work, and it doesn't happen if you're making $500 a month and you have to move on to something else.
Yes, exactly.
You just do.
You do have to grow up. That's not an uncommon thing. When I was leaving the business, just a short story, I was out in TMB and I was working with Duncan McIntosh, and I said, "Oh yeah, I'm thinking of going into something else." And he said, "How old are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm 33." He was like, "Ah, yes, 33. That's the year." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, it's your early 30s. You get to this point where you've got enough under your belt that you know what you're doing, and you start to have other dreams of a bit more stability, maybe settling down, maybe having a place to live on an ongoing basis, and let alone children,
an address,
a
mailbox.
Yeah, not that we use mailboxes much anymore for more than junk mail, but still, it's a place to call your own.
Catalyst
right?
is still my address. It just is.
Yeah. That's great. Now, so how did you get out of Catalyst? What was your next big project? Did you stay in Edmonton?
Yeah, I stayed in Edmonton, and what happened was instead of doing 9 projects a year, we started being a bit more reasonable and doing fewer projects a year. And then now we do one a year, one every 2 years. It depends on the size of the project, depends on the plan for the project, because part of our mandate is touring. We take the work all over the world in some cases. So I have worked on various projects interspersed, obviously, with the work that I do at Catalyst. So my first big project, something that coincided with that me graduating, was Bob Baker came to the Citadel, and he took over the Citadel. So, and his primary design collaborator, she went back to school. So there was this void that happened. And there was also sort of an exodus from Edmonton at the time. A number of designers headed east. Right. So I ended up on people's list very early on because there weren't that many of us. Truth be told, it was all law of numbers. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Was that Leslie Frankish?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Leslie went back to school.
She became a landscape architect,
That's right?
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right.
I was at Shaw when that happened. And they were like, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's great for you. That's a great break.
Amazing. It was, and he also wanted to work with someone local, and so went in and showed him my stuff, and we did popcorn together, and then Tom Wood directed Midsummer Night's Dream, and I did both of those in their first year, which is now 18 years ago, which is extraordinary.
I know it. It's
It
extraordinary.
kind of blows my mind.
Well, that's a great break too. So now, what was it like moving between Catalyst, where you had literally almost nothing, and to going to the Citadel, which is an established house with lots of resources? What was that? What did you have to do to adjust?
Well, Tom Wood said something very wise to me. He said, just because you're coming to the big house doesn't mean the paint box is that much bigger. Right. And I didn't really understand it at the time, but what he meant is true, which is if you, at Catalyst, I was building a lot of it by myself. Like, eventually I had help and so on, but I was building a lot of it by hand. And I didn't really know what I was doing. I certainly wasn't building anything that people had to stand on, but I was, props, and I was gluing costumes, and I can't sew. So I was, making the aesthetic sort of developed out of what we were capable of creating hands-on, which if you take that to an A house, it would be ridiculously expensive because it's all custom handmade stuff, and also I'm figuring it out as I go. Yeah. So it's a different process entirely. Mm-hmm. You come in an A house, you come in with what is it going to look like, mm-hmm. And at Catalyst we didn't know what it was going to look like until it landed on stage, because you keep testing and you keep trying, and you're working with actors and trying to figure out movement and body shapes, and maybe she swings her hips like that, so maybe we'll do a giant skirt made out of rubber hose. Like that's the kind of it's just a different process. Process versus being in an A house, which is fantastic as well. It has a different set of challenges and a different way to achieve the same goal, which is you're telling stories.
Exactly. That's terrific. Did you do opera early, or was that something that you grew into after you worked at the Citadel? And
I agree. God, there's a lot of coincidences in this. I would never put this together. Harry Frainer, who was the lighting designer for Edmonton Opera, moved to Calgary.
right.
Okay, this all sounds like I have a job because people left Edmonton. It may be true. Anyway, Harry Frainer left, and so there was a sort of a void there. And the production manager at the time asked me if I would be interested in lighting an opera, and I said absolutely not. I have no idea what I am doing. That's far too scary, and that's massive. And what are you talking about? And so fast. And he said, "Well, Harry's here doing a show. Why don't you follow him around for a few days and see what happens?" And I just tried by osmosis to learn from Harry Frainer, which is ridiculous because the man's a genius, and for me to do that is absurd. But I did follow him around, and I did pay attention, and I still said no. I still said I'm not ready. And then the following year, I did it again, and they said, "That's enough. Just do it." Right. And I did. The first one I did was Cav Pags, Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci. It's two short operas they usually put together. And we got to the end of the queuing session, and I wasn't done. And I said to the production manager, "So I'm not done. It's not fully queued." And he said, "Really?" And I said, "Really? Like what do we do?" And he said, "Well, I guess it'll be faster next time." Yeah. He did. That's exactly what he said. And I didn't even know what to do with that, but he was right. Yeah. I was faster next time. Yeah.
That's incredible. I always found the pace of opera. I didn't do a lot of opera, but it's one of those things where it's like you're just putting out cues. You're like working at a factory, right? Nighttime, daytime, down right, down left, the big crowd. Like you're just like pumping out those cues. You have to get it out.
You have to get it out. It's such a big, expensive building. They can't afford. No one can afford to have any more tech time than is absolutely necessary, and so you better light it up. Yeah, exactly. That's the job.
Exactly.
That's what you sign up for.
What have you done that's been your favorite to work on so far? The opera, I feel like takes a bit more risks lighting wise, especially as sets tend to be large, obviously, but alternative sources, 5Ks, weird machines. Have you been able to explore that? And what was your favorite show? Like, what did you like to work on?
Oh, I don't know. I did a Rigoletto in Calgary, which is at Calgary Opera with Glynis Lation, and I did the set and costumes for that, so I wasn't even lighting that. Harry was lighting it, thank goodness, and that was pretty magical because it was the scale is so forgiving. Like you can absolutely go for it. I mean, my favorite projects in the world are when people have to reel me in, and I'm fine, absolutely fine with that. Love it. But you're just given such license because the stories are so epic, and the belief that the ride that you go on, believing that, either everyone dies or everyone gets married or everyone, it depends on the opera. Right. And the music is, it all starts with the music. The music is so massive that really you need to sort of live up to that scale visually. So I find that a great and magical challenge. I love that.
Terrific. Just moving on a little bit. So when did you move out of it? What was your first show outside of Edmonton? Do you remember?
I'm not 100% sure what my first show outside of Edmonton was. I believe it was Prairie Theatre Exchange, a Munch children's show. I had a little bit of experience of working outside of Edmonton because we were touring Catalyst work a lot. Sure. So that was excellent because you were in new venues, new people, new ways of working, which included being in Edinburgh a number of years in a row at the Fringe, which is fantastic. My first big show outside of Edmonton was probably Can Stage. It was probably Canadian Stage. We did 12th Night. I did a lot of Shakespeare in the Park, and I worked with David Storch a lot at Can Stage on various new works. Did a lot of new work. New work is my. If you were to ask me what my passion is, it would be new work. Absolutely, new work, new opera, new plays, new musicals.
That's a great entryway. And I noticed in your resume or in your CV, you've got a separate section for design dramaturgy.
Yeah.
Which I found fascinating. I imagine these were workshops that you've done. Is that right?
Yeah.
Having done this now, this is going to be episode number, 30 something, and nobody ever has that section on their CV. And yesterday, when I was speaking with Pat Flood, after the interview, we spoke a lot about dramaturgy and being and how there's not a lot of resources out there as a designer to learn how to dramaturge or how to participate in that process. Yeah. So tell me about, obviously you value it. Catalyst, it seems like that would be an excellent opportunity to learn from the beginning to the end. But how did you get involved, and what do you consider that to be?
I consider it to be about, I believe that designers are visual storytellers. I believe that we my goal, I shouldn't speak for all of us, my goal is to support the telling of the story, but also to in whatever ways I can, help the clarity, help to push in a direction if it feels it needs to be pushed in a direction, help to obviously provide context, help to, you're sending the audience on a journey. So how, there are many ways of doing that. Sometimes the story is best told through words, sometimes it's best told through music, sometimes it's best told through a visual moment. So how, the greatest shows I can possibly hope to work on are the ones where the writer, the director, the cast, the designers are all, I call it the best answer wins. Like, it doesn't matter, the ego at the door, it doesn't matter who has the idea, the moment of inspiration, but let's carve and shape this so that we are taking the audience on the ride that we want them to go on. Yeah. So, that's something I think that we developed at Catalyst really early on, because there was such a visual emphasis. John and Joey, the writers and directors and composers, both of them, but they also really value the power of the visual story. So it's not to get in the way. It's not to be all, that was my idea and doesn't she look great in that dress? It's about, are you telling the story? So what happened over the years was directors or playwrights or combinations of directors and playwrights have asked me to read a play and tell them what I see, which is just it's a very low stakes, fun way of just sharing visually what's popping off the page, right? And then the ones that are listed are actual workshops where designers in the room just sketching, bringing visuals to help communicate what you're seeing. Just make offers. It's just about making offers. Offer. Jill Kiley, who I work with a lot, says one of the things she likes is I'm not afraid to let things go. I have no fear about cutting things or letting things go. And she jokes, she says, it's because there's always a million more. There's always a million more offers, which I'm sure can get quite tedious, but I'm so happy to just make offers. So this is, I'm not a honer, if that makes sense. I'm not the person in the room who is often condensing the thought into a single. I'm usually the person going, we could do it this way. If we did it this way, this is what would happen. What if we did it this way? This is what would happen. Yeah. What if we put her up there? And then if we did that, then what the audience would think is, we're seeing through the mirror, those kinds of things. So I guess that's what I think of as visual dramaturgy.
That's terrific. Great. Now, I think it's interesting that I think the reason I haven't seen it on any other CV, not that I've seen hundreds of CVs, but people don't usually consider that a product of their work. You when you do a show, you can say, "Aha!" and everyone can come and see it, and you can wrap it in a bow. Whereas the kind of work you're talking about is just development. Now, development's important, but people don't. I don't think people have given it the value that and importance that from what I'm hearing from you is quite obvious. Like this is important work to do, and you should, especially if you have a reputation for it. It's something you should celebrate and share with people, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a real rigor to what we do, a real rigor to what a designer does, and months, sometimes years before you're even in a rehearsal hall, and to be able to, I had never even really heard of the term visual dramaturg. It was a playwright who asked me to read a play and asked for my feedback. And I said, why? Of course I will. Of course, but I don't have any power. I don't have, so tell me what you're looking for. And she said, well, I think of you as a visual dramaturg, so just tell me what you see. Tell me what you see. And there's a great freedom in that, because there's nothing in that situation. There's nothing going on stage. There is no plan. There's just a person with a great imagination who has written a piece and wants to know what someone else sees when they read it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you've got a vocabulary as a designer to be able to describe that in detail and come up with ideas, it seems exceedingly valuable. That's awesome. Now, just to sort of get to we've got about 20 minutes left total. So let's talk about Cirque, which you did last year.
Last year, yes.
So tell me about the project first of all, and how you got into that, and what your experience was like working with Cirque.
Sure.
Cirque du Soleil.
Cirque du Soleil. Sure. The connection was Krista Monson, who was a choreographer, creator, director, who choreographed Grease, the musical, at the Citadel Theatre, and I designed it. 11 years later, I hadn't even spoken to her since. She's a fantastic woman. 11 years later, I got a random email from her saying, hey, can you chat with me tomorrow? I'd love to talk to you. Sure, absolutely. So she called me and started speaking French on the phone. And I didn't know, but this was a little test. And I responded in French, and we spoke French for a couple of minutes. And then she said, there's this project. It may get the green light. It's looking good. It's for the World's Fair in Milan. And I would love to know if you're interested. Now, I don't know who says no to being interested. I shouldn't say that. I should be so brazen, but it's been a dream of mine since, they're 30, 31 years old now in Cirque du Soleil. It's always been a dream. So this was an extraordinary opportunity, and we did that indeed. We worked on the World's Fair, and it opened in May in Milan and closed in October. So it coincided with the exhibition. It was an outdoor venue, brand new venue. So all the great challenges that come with a brand new venue that's being built to do something other than what we are bringing. Right? Yeah. It's being built for Beyonce, and we're bringing, the circus. So the technical team was out of this world. Basically, we were building a theater within a theater outside, and it seated 10,000 people. So huge space, and so talk about scale. Yeah. That's and scale, and also just talk about learning curve. You're very instantly aware of the power of circus. The power is in the majesty of the acrobats and the things that they can do that no one else can do, very few people can do in the world. So I was, constantly in a state of learning about that and deferring, because there's a lot of, okay, so I can imagine what that can look like, but the engineering of it obviously goes to the experts, and there are many. Like, it's a massive team of people, a very smart, creative, outrageous, funny team of people who believe, and part of the reason Cirque is what Cirque is, they believe that anything is possible, which is truly in line with everything I believe.
It's also a bit daunting too, at least to me. What was the show? What did the show look like? What was your concepts, or was it individual pieces, or was there was there an overall theme? Like, they do themes?
Yeah. There's a theme. We were Krista created, wrote, and directed the piece based on the theme of the World's Fair, which was feeding the planet food for life. So it was responsibility, food, creation of food, dissemination of food. And so we had, so it was and obviously we're in Italy, so it's a place of incredible food, most wonderful food. So the big overall concept was Nona's kitchen. So it was a giant shelf in the cupboard of Nona's kitchen. So there was a big flour pot and sugar and coffee and salt and all the things that you would find on that shelf in Nona's kitchen. And of course, each of those pieces then did something or was magical in some way. And then it was surrounded by what we called our pasta wall, which was a giant, like hundreds of kilometers of strips of like a white. It's the casing that you use on rope. Like it's right. So it was these strips, like thousands and thousands of strips that surrounded the shelf. And what it could do is it could be projected on. The projections were extraordinary, but it could also be jumped through and walked through and climbed through, and people could appear through it and back and forth and so on. So it was great. It was great.
That's awesome. And how was one last question before we move on to Stratford? What was the kind of what was your relationship with the engineers and the technical directors? Like, how did you figure out those problems? Did you come up with an idea and then bring it to them and they give you feedback, or was it something working together, sort of in a constant iteration?
Yeah, it was sort of a offer response kind of thing. I would say, well, what does it need to do? And they'd say, well, honestly, you show us what you guys are thinking, and then we'll talk about how to make it happen, or how it needs to change in order to make it happen, or how to guide the process. So they were very they're extremely skilled, and they have a very high level of health and safety requirement, obviously, right? So that's you put it out there, and then everybody shares their expertise. Yeah.
That's terrific. I imagine it was well received.
It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Well, 10,000 seat venue. Was it full? Did they sell?
Great question. I know the director went back for the last 4 or 5 performances, and you couldn't move. So that was fantastic. I think as the summer progressed, it probably got more and more so. I don't know. It was great. Certainly the nights that I saw it, everyone was over the moon. Yeah.
And just before we get to Stratford, you now live in the UK, in London.
I do.
And you moved there a couple of years ago.
I did.
And you're starting to work over there. How did you find your way into the community? Your partner is in the community already, right?
He is, yeah. So partly through him, partly through I now have an agent there, so she's helping me make that happen. It's a slow transition, obviously. I still have great collaborators here that I want to work with. So I still honestly work and pay taxes in Canada, which I will do for the rest of my life. And I'm in London whenever I can be in London, yeah.
That's a bit of a juggling act.
It is. I all of a sudden have a very expensive life.
Right. Yes, exactly.
It's a good thing I make so much money.
Phew.
Yeah, right.
All right. Okay, so Stratford. When did you first come to Stratford? This is your third show here, right?
This is my third show, yes.
Yeah.
Jill, Kylie, and I did Alice Through the Looking Glass, which was the first show. Then last year we did Diary of Anne Frank, and this year I'm doing As You Like It with her. And Alice Through the Looking Glass just closed in Edmonton. It went on the road.
Oh, right.
It was like, that's what a glorious surprise. We knew it was going to go to Ottawa, but it also went to Charlottetown, Winnipeg, and Edmonton.
I'm so glad they're doing it now. It seems like such a not a waste, but a wasted opportunity not to bring the stuff that's produced at such a high level across Canada and share it with everybody, right?
Well, it's very exciting, and I mean, I hope it can happen again and again because it was so people loved it. They had a ball.
Okay, so tell me about the process here at Stratford and how you get into the work here. This is because of a large festival. You have to start way in advance, right, to get the machine rolling. How do you respond to change, and how do you change your working process to make sure that it gets to the stage here?
Well, it's an incredibly collaborative buildings to work in. I'm sort of pleasantly surprised at how open and eager everyone is to. Like, I sort of thought I'd be a bit daunted and scared, and everyone's, big and fancy and smart, and I'm just, like that whole and the thing that happens to me all the time, and in fact, everyone is again highly skilled. Like the artists that work here are out of this world, and then once you get to know them a little bit. In fact, your design shifts based on, like last year, there was a massive paint requirement on the costumes, which I never would have done but for having met the woman, Lisa, who does their costume painting. She's amazing. So my imagination was, well, anything's possible. I will collaborate with her on this and see what she thinks. But those early conversations are so valuable because they actually help to guide you in the product.
Yeah. So, and what about your own personal process? So, I think what I'm getting is it changes every show.
I think it changes every show. Yeah. I think it shifts based on certainly who the director is, and then. I'm early days working on a project for the National Arts Centre, and 2 weeks ago I sent an email about some cockamamie idea I had in the middle of the night to the TD and the PM there, and they sent me their responses. So like that dialogue there's nothing on paper. It's just I think mostly people are open to. They want to bring what they know. They want to bring their talents to the table, I think. And I think the more you can encourage that open dialogue, the better the product is. Because we know very little. And so if each of us knows a little bit about something and we can bring that all together, we can create something way more interesting than I can do by myself. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Absolutely, it totally does. And tell me about the show you're doing, As You Like It, this year.
Yeah.
What's it? What should we expect? Like you must be. It's right now. It's April the 2nd, and the opening is May, right?
June the 3rd.
Oh, good Lord, it opens late here. Okay,
June
so you got
yes.
still a couple months. So you're still early,
yes.
still building and making decisions.
Yes, it is set in Newfoundland in the 80s. Can you imagine a better party than Newfoundland in the 80s?
Absolutely.
Right?
Awesome.
So it's a massive kitchen party. That's how we're thinking about it. It's a love story. There's 4 love stories. They're great fun, and there's a huge conflict between the court and the forest, like there was in the 80s in Newfoundland, massive conflict between the townies and the baymen. Mm-hmm. So there's like a link culturally to what was happening in Newfoundland at the time. Right. But also Jill's from Newfoundland, and there's a bunch of Newfoundlanders in the cast, and we're using traditional music. Bob Hallett is creating it, is from Great Big Sea. Mm-hmm. So there's like a real joy around it. That's all I can say. I literally just left a dance rehearsal where people are stomping and clapping and having the time of their lives up there. So the idea is, and again, it's sort of an undesigned design. When you arrive, you're given we're calling it a goodie bag, and it's full of things that will embrace you as an audience member to participate in the telling of the story.
That's great.
In a good way, not in a scary, I don't want to go because I'm going to be singled out way. It's not like that at all, because no one wants to do that. No.
That's terrific. That sounds great. We have another 5 or 6 minutes left. You illustrated a children's book.
I did.
I
did.
What is it you don't do? You do everything that's
a lot.
Fantastic.
Jonathan and I collaborated on a children's book. It's called Maximilian's Mistake. And he wrote the text and I illustrated it, and it was really fun. It was that's a completely different, I don't know. Same but different. You're trying to take people on a journey, right? They're reading the story and they're looking at the illustration, and they go somewhere, as we all did as kids when we were reading books.
That's fantastic. And then on that note, you're telling stories about the present, but you're also telling stories about the past, in that you illustrate for archaeological investigations. Tell me about how you got into that, and how you had to change your brain to sort of...
Sure.
Yeah.
I was, during my undergrad at U of M, I took an elective, which was Ancient Greek art and architecture. Sorry. The professor of that class ran digs in the summer, and he was looking for students to come and work with him. And some of us, he made an offer. You could write a shorter essay if it coincided with a work of art that you created, or you could write a longer essay. And most people obviously chose to write a long essay. And then there were those of us, a handful of us, who were in interior design who went, forget that. We'll draw something and write the short version. At any rate, I was very interested in certainly going to Greece, and I was very interested in working on these digs. And he hired me as an illustrator. So he taught me how to illustrate for publication. And I mean, there's lots of things I love about it. Of course, the romance of it. It's such an incredible. It's all about possibility. You have a theory and you're digging for something, but you don't know what you're going to uncover. But the thing that's surprising that I love about it is you can get it right. There's nothing in my world I can get right. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But I can draw something and I can look at it and know if it's right, because it's actually very technical. Right. It's measured and it's extremely technical. So it feels like a kind of marriage of design and math. Not that I'm any good at math, but I am able to get something right, which is just deeply satisfying.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you want to do
when I grow up?
When you grow up? You were exhibited in Prague this year at the World Theater Expo. What's it called?
It's called the Quadrennial.
The Quadrennial. Thank you. You exhibited this year at the Quadrennial in Prague, which is great. I'm glad Canada is sending stuff over there. This year it was they were outhouses, right?
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was an installation of outhouses created by Patrick Jaworz, and he designed the installation piece, and he had one of his works was one of the outhouses. So each of us had an outhouse that we were representing a show, and Patrick was working with all of the teams or individuals to then design the inside of that outhouse so that it all made sense and it was an experience and sounds like everyone loved it. So I think it was a huge success.
Yeah, that's terrific. And then finally, April. Oh God,
Visco.
April Visco. I know April. Hi, April. April Visco has put together a costume exhibit that has toured to Moscow and Beijing, and you were part of that as well, and that's going to the U.S. I think it's really important that Canadian design be represented internationally. I think that's a great idea. Could you describe the exhibit and your part in it and where it's going next?
Well, we were basically called to submit works from a project or a variety of projects, and then it was curated, so chosen by a gentleman in Moscow. And the exhibit, I believe, now I haven't seen it, but I believe is a AV work.
Okay.
So that you're seeing, so that it's not actual pieces that have gone, but you're seeing the works of I'm sure I'll get this wrong, but I think there are maybe 8 to 10 of us. And it's really exciting. I've been having a lot of conversations about identity, cultural identity, Canadian identity. Living in London, is challenging identity-wise because we are. Some of them still consider us, a colony, and there is a little bit of condescension there, to be sure. But I think the responsibility is ours to clarify what it is to be Canadian in a really versus what it is not to be Canadian. And I think that April's very wise to have put this together because it helps form an identity within a very small, you would call costume design a bit of a niche field. It's not a million people who are costume designers, but if we can bring that to places all over the world and say, this is what we're up to here, then, you help to elevate the I don't know, it's status, I guess. I think it's just about wanting to be clear about what the fabric is here and what it is that makes you who you are, and that is not greater or lesser. It is what you bring. What do you bring? And I'm a prairie kid. I was born in Vancouver, but I am a prairie kid. So what I bring is guided by that, whether I like it or not. Big open sky, tons of space, imagination. I mean, if you're stuck inside in Winnipeg for 8 months of the year, that's why so much great music comes out of there as well. Visual art. You're forced to make your own fun, and it's just identity.
That's delightful. I think that we'll leave it at that. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good luck with, or break a leg. Good luck with. Ooh, whoever. Break a leg on your opening in June. And that was designer Bretta Gerecke. By the end of the month, I will have another Bellows episode and hopefully a chat with designer Julie Fox. The music for this podcast is by Vern Good with voiceover by Gabriel Cropley. Please go to iTunes and give us a review. It'll help get the word out about this podcast and share the history of theatre design in Canada. And you can follow us on Twitter at TheTitleBlockCA and on Facebook.com/TheTitleBlock Podcast. You can send comments and requests by email to TheTitleBlock@gmail.com. And don't forget that if you like the show, please support us on Patreon. Feel free to share this with your friends, colleagues, students, and teachers, or listen to it while you sip basso bucco during a run-through of your show at the Milan World Expo. Or you can settle for hot and sour soup in the backspace of Pasmarai. I'm Michael Cruz, and I'll see you next time on The Title Block.
Here's something I learned about the circus. Mm-hmm. When you're in rehearsal and people say, we're just going to do this one last time. You can't say that in the circus. Because if you say one last time, it means it's because somebody's
has hurt themselves. Oh, wow.
So there's a real superstition around one last time.
That's great.
You just say it again. We're going to do it again.
Awesome.
It's great.
I'll put that in at the end of the episode. Maybe a little teaser at the end. That's great. Okay, thank you so much.